Welcome back to Economic Outlook. I'm currently working on a new series of entries examining the recent rise in gold prices. I want to determine whether or not price increases are a result of speculation or a rational response to concerns about currency depreciation and increased inflation. However, in the meantime, I wanted to look at two examples, one of a government and one of a private company attempting to pass blame for disasters of their own creation onto other people. The first is British Petroleum and its continued oil spill into the Gulf of Mexico, and the other is Greek Prime Minister George Papandreou and his attempts to blame the United States investment banking industry for his country's financial crisis. Let's start with British Petroleum. Since the Deepwater Horizon platform sank almost a month ago, scientists have tried to determine exactly how much oil is escaping the damaged pipeline into the Gulf of Mexico. The original estimate of 1,000 barrels per day was revised upward to 5,000 barrels shortly after. However, recent discoveries of large plumes of oil within the waters of the Gulf of Mexico have caused scientists to doubt whether even the 5,000 barrel per day estimate is accurate. Scientists have been able to analyze video of oil actually escaping from the pipe on the seabed floor. This particle analysis has allowed scientists to come to new and hopefully more accurate estimates of the amount of oil actually escaping from the pipe. Additional discoveries of oil plumes have also called into question the 5,000 barrel per day figure published by British Petroleum. Some scientists estimate that as much as 80,000 barrels a day may be flowing into the Gulf, but other scientists think the 5,000 figure is probably more accurate. So there's obviously a wide variety of opinions on how much oil is actually escaping from the damaged pipe. Now you may be asking, why won't British Petroleum allow scientists to use more precise instruments near the oil leak itself to determine an accurate figure of exactly how much oil is escaping from the pipe? Well, here is British Petroleum's actual response to that question. When asked whether or not scientists would be allowed to use precise instrumentation near the oil leak, BP spokesman Tom Miller replied, "The answer is no to that. We're not going to take any extra efforts now to calculate flow there at this point. It's not relevant to the response effort, and it might even detract from the response effort." Of course, British Petroleum doesn't want the public to know the exact amount of oil flowing into the Gulf of Mexico. It would only detract from the cleanup process in that it would focus more attention on British Petroleum's culpability for the environmental disaster. Oh wait, British Petroleum isn't actually responsible. It's Transocean's fault. Oh no wait, I'm wrong again. It's not Transocean's fault, it's actually Halliburton's fault for not installing the proper fail-safe mechanisms. But wait, no, it's not Halliburton's fault either. It's back to British Petroleum because they were responsible for implementing Transocean and Halliburton safety measures. So apparently, according to British Petroleum and everyone involved in this entire fiasco, no one is to blame, therefore everyone is to blame, so ultimately no one is actually responsible for what's happening. It's British Petroleum's job to provide the truth about exactly what kind of disaster they've created in the Gulf of Mexico. And I'm not saying this as someone who hates oil companies or who hates drilling. I'm not saying this from a partisan perspective. This is an issue of responsibility and a corporation being honest with the people whose lives have been affected by a disaster the company is responsible for creating. So I think this is emblematic of the problem that corporations in America face when they try to deal with large-scale disasters. They're more concerned about legal wrangling and this kind of spin approach to public correspondence. So ultimately, British Petroleum, you need to allow scientists to measure flow rate. It won't distract from the cleanup effort. That's the most ludicrous excuse I've heard in quite a while. So shame on British Petroleum for trying to obscure the actual facts behind the disaster in the Gulf of Mexico. Now next, let's look at what Greek Prime Minister Papandreou said about the American investment banking industry and its role in the Greek financial crisis. Here's what the Prime Minister had to say on Fareed Zakaria's GPS program. "We are paying back the loans we are getting. This saying that we are handing out money to Greece is not true. It's very easy to scapegoat Greece, and Greece bashing very often gets entangled in regional politics. We are ready to make the changes. We have made our mistakes. We are living up to this responsibility, but at the same time, give us a chance. Apparently, Prime Minister Papandreou believes that mass riots in response to austerity measures are the Greek people's way of constructively handling the financial crisis. Now I know it's not Papandreou's fault that the people decided to riot, and the majority of Greek citizens did not actually engage in the violent protests. However, the protests did represent strong public opinion in Greece against changing the status quo. Now let's look at what Prime Minister Papandreou said about the American investment banking industry. I wouldn't rule out that legal action might be a recourse, but we need to let due process take its course and then make our judgments once we get the results from the investigations. Papandreou accused the American investment banking industry of fraud and a lack of transparency when dealing with Greek debt. Now, this is actually a very typical response from governments or countries who believe they're under the attack of financial speculators. They try to blame the speculators for the problems in the country and not the inherent causes of the financial problems that might attract speculation. I think it's completely hypocritical for Prime Minister Papandreou to criticize the American investment banking industry when it was his own country that used American investment banks to set up shell companies to hide the true level of debt in the state of Greece when it was seeking admission into the European Union. Unfortunately, this attitude is far from uncommon. It's easier to blame faceless international institutions, like large banks, than it is to accept personal responsibility that your government and your people have made poor decisions. Now, this isn't to condemn Greece specifically, and investment banks are far from blameless in situations like this. However, it's unfair to transfer the blame from an individual to another institution when both parties were likely complicit in creating the financial crisis. Thank you for joining me as always here on Economic Outlook, and hopefully within the next week or two, I will have my series on gold prices posted to my website. You can always go to my website at www.econoutlook.com for more information, and thanks as always for watching. I'll see you next week.